The pit stop is vital to every race team's success. Pull off the track, let your team go to work.
Outside, clear.
Change all 4 tires, fill the fuel cell, and make needed adjustments, all in 8 seconds or less.
Man, I feel like I've been living through a pit stop the last couple weeks. Holy cow. Welcome, everybody. Pits are open, brought to you by Speed Sport, your one-stop shop for all racing news. Speed Sport 1 television. Also, Redline Ace, your one-stop shop for all racing graphic needs, car wraps, uniform, helmet design, hero cards, you name it. Redline Ace gets it done. And next week, a new sponsor announcement. I'm so excited for that. Very good. We got Alex Smith in the studio joining us, our par excellence engineer, producer. And big weekend this past weekend out in Laguna Seca. Laguna Seca is always a wonderful track to watch racing at. Beautiful track. Of course, the one and the only world corkscrew. I mean, the elevation changes are dynamic. And Alex Palou dominated. I mean, no other way to explain it. Just dominated. Led all but 11 of the 95 laps. And at this point, the championship is not mathematically over, but it might as well be. With 3 races left, 2 ovals and Portland and Milwaukee, and, of course, the finale at Nashville Superspeedway. Alex only has to start and finish 16th or better in those races to be able to wrap up the championship. Pato Award gave him a challenge, but not enough. And so third place, Scott Dixon. You know, Scott's having a good year. Pretty amazing. Christian Lundgaard. I tell you, I love Christian Lundgaard. I love watching him. He is aggressive, but he's smart. Did a great job. And Christian Rasmussen was fun to watch as well. Disappointing time for Santino Ferrucci, who, you know, I have a personal affection for. So that was that. But, again, it's not over yet. It's not over till it's over, but it's pretty much over. In IndyCar for Alex Palou. And I'm happy. I'm glad to see he's got 8 wins. He's going to have to close out the season. He's going to have to three in a row to tie A.J. Foyt's record for most wins in a season. He's tied now with, let's see, who was he tied with? I think he might be tied with Mario right now. It was Mario, Al Sr., and then AJ. So that's I mean, pretty good for a young driver in not a lot of seasons. He has really done a great job. Had the Brickyard at Indy. Of course, I'm not a big NASCAR fan, which you know. But I guess it was a good race. Ticket sales were down. I looked on TV, and I tell you, we'll ask Tony Donahue. Tony's going to be on in the second segment. We'll ask Tony. Tony was there. He was spotting one race, and I don't know, maybe he spotted both races. But it looked thin to me. And according to Doug Bowles, probably about 65,000. They're down 5,000 to 6,000 from 24. 24 was supposed to be a big year because the first year back on the oval since Penske ownership. And, well, wasn't that big of a deal. I mean, yeah, you say 65,000. Oh, you'd love to. Most places would be ecstatic to have 65,000. But when you got 250,000 fixed seats, 65,000 looks like BB's rolling around a boxcar. So that's, but of all that, and I have to say too, we're so happy that you're watching today, whether you're watching live or recorded, whether you're on YouTube, the Pits Are Open podcast, or watching on Maserati Autosport Facebook or Spotify, Pits Are Open. We're just glad you're watching. Please comment, like, share. Please subscribe. If you're on the old YouTube channel, which the pit just says the Pits Are Open, we want you to subscribe to the new YouTube channel, the Pits Are Open podcast. We'll be shutting down that old channel soon. And so good stuff. Big and exciting. There's something gigantically exciting waiting for us a little bit down the track. And we'll maybe announce that next week, or I don't know, Alex, maybe the week after. I don't know. We'll see. Well, we won't do the week after because you'll be on vacation. So, I want to say a shout-out to somebody who's been on the program here because it's kind of a record in a sense. Catherine Legg. Catherine has been dueling with Xfinity races and NASCAR Cup races. And Sunday she did it. She finished 17th and it's only the second time in history that a woman has finished better than 20th or better in a NASCAR Cup race. The only other person, Danica Patrick. So it's a huge thing, and I'm so happy for Catherine. She's been working hard, and she's done a great job. And it's a man's world in NASCAR. Certainly is a man's world, and so she did a great job. Finished 17th. Congratulations. We want to talk a little bit about Trans Am because Trans Am is so big with our partners at Speed Sport 1. It had a good weekend in Portland. Wrapped up a great weekend. Brody Goebel and Ken Sutherland sweeped in TA2 and TA, both races. Pretty impressive, and so that was fun to watch. And you can get Speed Sport 1, by the way, on any smart TV, any TV that has fast channels. So fast channels are like Amazon Prime, Tubi, Fubo, Roku, Sling, and you can get Speed Sport 1 on any of those fast channels, and they have a lot of programming. They have over 100 racing events a week on Speed Sport 1, so you want to get involved in that. All right, joining us, I think for the second time, good friend out in Indianapolis. I've known him, met him in a Turn 2 suite several years ago. He's the host of The Greatest Spectacle in Podcasting, Seventh Gear Overdrive, and that would be the one, the only, the infamous, the famous Kevin Kraus. Kevin, welcome back.
Thanks for having me back, Will. I love the intro. That you had it right on the head. The greatest.
I wish I would have
spectacle in
thought of that
podcasting.
sooner. I'm trying to. Can I somehow appropriate that into what we do? Because it's not. I mean, we podcast, but podcasting is kind of a secondary thing for us because the video is the thing we put all the energy in. Podcasting is just a fruit of the vine. So I gotta figure out some way to not offend you and not be a copycat with the great.
Well,
that's a great
it's.
Go ahead.
I'm glad you like it. I actually, because I've been like you, a fan of the Indy 500 for so many years that when I decided to pull the trigger and do the show, my show. I was like, I thought that would be great, because I always, as a little kid, I had my dad's microphone in front of the little AM/FM radio, recording it onto a cassette player.
I did the same thing. Oh my gosh, I did the same thing. Yeah.
And I'll never forget, hearing
Wow.
Paul Page say, the greatest spectacle in racing. So finally, when I had the opportunity to interview Paul for the first time a couple of years ago, before he and I got to know each other pretty well, I said, "Hey, Paul, what do you think about if I used the greatest spectacle in podcasting?" He's like, "I think that's great. I wish I would have thought of it." So this year, this May, we all, a bunch of us got together for dinner and that story came up and Paul's like, I said, I got the blessing from the man himself, the pipes, man, the voice. And he's like, "Yes, I did, but don't push it or I'll have to take my endorsement back." Because I think it's great.
What was the place that everybody's gone to, Paul Page, Bob Gates, Denny Miller. Was it the Iron Skillet?
Well, that's where they used to go.
I think they went out of business, right? They're going now?
It was, and actually that's who I had dinner with that night. It was Paul and Denny and Bob Gates and Linda Lummer and Paul's wife, Sally, joined us. And it was, now I can't think of the name of it, but it was this great family chicken place in Broad Ripple.
Oh, okay,
The name escapes me at the moment.
I've gone there too, and I can't think of it.
Right?
Gosh.
My wife knew all about it.
You mentioned Paul. The Saturday before the 500, we had a gathering for the 70th anniversary of Johnny Parsons' 500 win, and Paul was there. And I got a chance to talk, and I said to Paul, if you had it, I know this is hard. It's like trying to pick a favorite child, but if you had to pick one, what was the best 500 you ever called? No delay at all. Went right to 82. Which was thrilling for me because that was my first in-person race. It's the John Cock Mears Showdown. It was 10 laps to go. And no hesitation, he said 82. I'm like, I felt so good about that. I was really a part of that. It was so much fun. So I can't believe now you're a little younger than I am, I think. So I don't
think by much.
Well, you are,
but I appreciate that.
But here, so I used to do the same thing. I used to get the microphone and that's how the first 500 I heard was on the big honking multi-band AM radio. We had the weather channel, whatever the official weather. We had a nautical channel, and it was 1969, and I was outside, and I don't even think it was. I think it was a Friday. That was what odd about it. I was tuning on. My dad was outside working, and I'm on a channel always that I listen to because that's what the Boston Red Sox. It's the flagship station here in Connecticut. And I land on something, and it sounds like car, engines revving. I'm like, what? What is that? And people are talking, and I'm listening longer, and it was Sid Collins. Well, the greatest spectacle in racing, and I'm like, this is the Indy 500, which I was just starting to understand as a young fan. Isn't that funny how so many of us have the similar genesis of how we fell in love with the Indy 500? It's so amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's really interesting, speaking of those kind of genesis things, and I know this is a little off topic from what you had wanted to talk about, but this last week I was telling you before we came on the air that with our other business, Kraus Meats, I was able to actually cook for the Lexus Performance Driving School folks because they finished their season at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. But my first time going to the Speedway, and it wasn't actually the first time I went to the race wasn't until '85, but my grandfather took me to the Speedway for the first time ever back in 1975. Ooh. And he used to work timing and scoring at the Fair Park in Milwaukee because I grew up about 20 minutes from there. So my favorite driver then and even now was Roger McCluskey. Because he was the first one that I got an autograph from. And oddly enough, he's from Tucson, and I lived in Tucson for a while. But that's neither here nor there. So I instantly became a fan of Roger from when I was a little kid. So in 1975, he was sponsored at the time by the Silver Floss Sauerkraut Company. And the gift shop at the Speedway actually sold the patch, the Silver Floss special patch, which to this day I race with on my driver's suit. Just kind of an homage to Roger and the influence. So fast forward, we get to the Speedway, and we're cooking up our Kraus Meats brats and jalapeno cheddar brats and wieners and stuff. And I said, well, you can't have a brat or a wiener without some good kraut. So I go to the grocery store looking for kraut, and lo and behold, what do I find? Silver Floss sauerkraut at the grocery store. So here I am.
Wow.
It's still available. And they're headquartered in my home state of Wisconsin, believe it or not. And so, of course, 50 years after the first time I'd ever been to the Speedway, my idol's sponsor is still making the product that we served that day. And we've got some cool pictures on our social media from it. Yeah. It was another one of those Genesis moments,
Those are
just
priceless
a cool
moments. They really are.
Yeah. Yeah, it really was. It was really special for me.
75 was a good year. Bobby Unser, rain shortened win.
Yep, the rain win. And that was Roger's best finish, actually.
Oh, was it?
Year.
What, like 7th or 8th? What was he?
5th, I think it was.
5th. I remember specifically the Jorgensen Steel Eagle was the
that baby blue color.
Oh, so nice. So nice.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, so tell us a little bit about your. I don't know if I put this in the notes, but tell us a little bit about your driving. I mean, you still do a lot of driving for different groups. I mean, I would love to be able to go around and host driver schools and stuff. It's pretty cool. What do you do?
Well, I always say there's a lot worse things I could do for a living than getting paid to drive race cars, because I had been into that, since I was a kid, and I had always wanted to race at the Speedway. So I actually finally put myself through a racing school up in Canada back in the late 80s, and wound up winning the school. So I got a scholarship from Canadian Tire and Motomaster and GM of Canada at the time to go back. And so that's kind of how I got started. So I was an open wheel guy. I raced Formula 2000s for a long time, then Formula Atlantic, Formula Ford. And then, trying to move up the ladder, finding the money to go turn pro, and for like a lot of guys with talent, it just didn't happen. So you have to, kind of go to plan B. So we did that. And then I got, and I moved to Arizona, and then my dad was in the radio business in the Metro Milwaukee market, and had been invited up to Road America, which was my home racetrack. That's where I got my first race win, was at Road America. Oh, wow. And he had gone through a Skip Barber media program, and he calls me up at the end of the day, and he's like, "Kevin, you got to do this. These guys are speaking your language. You got, and I know the PR, the HR person. You got to send them a resume." And I'm like, all right, fine. But if I'm going to send a resume 2,500 miles back across the country, I know there's a big racing school just up the street in Phoenix here, which was the Bondurant School. So I applied there, and it just turns out it was the middle of August, so it's like 8 million degrees out. And of course, it was the time when they lost a few guys to a new racing school. So I got hired, and that's kind of how my coaching career started. And then I did some SCCA stuff, for some Formula Car guys, and then through my work at Bondurant, then that was about 2006, 2007 was when you started to see some of these racetrack country clubs starting to pop up. And the Audubon Country Club in Joliet, Illinois was one of those. And we had a number of people that would come out to Phoenix in the middle of winter, because you can't drive in the Midwest or in the Northeast, in December, January, February. And so they kind of put in a word for me to get in at the Audubon. And so then I moved there during the summer months because, the driving school in Phoenix is pretty slow when it's that hot during the summer months. So I took a leave of absence for a few seasons to be the assistant track manager at the Audubon and in charge of the driver training and, all that kind of stuff until 2008 when the recession hit. And then, it hurt everybody. The automotive manufacturers suffered and, a lot of us got laid off and I was kind of swept up in that. But then right after that, I had been contacted sort of randomly by Mercedes and AMG to just help them out with a local thing. And then next thing I knew, they called up and said, hey, we've got the contract for the AMG. At the time, it was called the AMG Academy, and we think you'd be a good fit. Would you be interested? And I said, I had the phone next to me, and I said to my wife, I'm on the phone. I said, let me think about this. And I just put it to my chest, and I said, turned to my wife, I'm like, it's AMG. Come on board. What do you think? And she's like, and I'm like, I already knew the answer. So I said, of course. So here we are. This is now my 14th season with the AMG driving, now rebranded as the AMG Experience. And then right after all the shenanigans with COVID shutting things down in 2020, then I got, through a mutual friend of mine, got brought into the Lexus Performance Driving School, as well as now the Porsche school down in Birmingham, as well as around the country, around my racing, because I was able to race in IMSA. I was able to actually race in the Pirelli World Challenge Sports Car Championship for a couple seasons and do some WRL stuff. But I'm still teaching for all three of those other manufacturers' schools, in addition to the podcasting and the meat company and all that kind of stuff. So every once in a while there's just not enough of me to go around, as I'm sure you feel, between your pastor duties and trying to get your show booked and all that kind of stuff. So it's been a little bit of a struggle here the midsummer to be as consistent with our shows as I'd like. But we've got some really great traction, and I don't know if that's attributed to the fact that we're pushing more on our YouTube channel like you are or not. But I just looked the other day, and I think the last time I was on with you, we were at maybe 70 countries that we were heard in, and now we're at 79. And I don't even know how that happened. And we're at almost 9,000 downloads now. So we're apparently we're doing something not too bad. So we're going to keep that going. We've got a lot of really great interest from some really great guests to come on, some that have been on with us before. We're talking about doing some live shows, maybe some, where we get somebody to debate a certain motorsports topic, some on location stuff. Like I plan to be up at Milwaukee here in a few weeks for the next to last race of the season. So we've got a lot of cool things coming down the pipeline. So we're excited about it.
Wow. I mean, I've only done one remote location shot so far, and that was we recorded a show at the Delora building, Delora IndyCar Factory, Delora Experience, what do they call it now, Experience Hub. And it was fun, but I'd rather have the security and predictability of the studio.
Well, it's funny you say that, because the first real show that we did for our YouTube stuff, I had to be not only the on-air talent, but also the camera guy and coordinate new equipment that I had never done before. And we were actually, it's funny you brought up the whole Johnny Parsons reunion deal there at Mike Lashmit's Vintage Indy shops, because we did our interview with Al Unser Jr. and Mike at his shops, and we happened to have Johnny's daughters in the audience that day, along with Johnny's 1952 or 50 winning trophy that they brought.
So you did the same day? You did that show?
It wasn't the day of that party. It was like the day before, I think it was. Something like that. But they were there, and they were in town, obviously, for that. And they hung around to watch the interview with Al Jr. and Mike and myself. And I think it was Joni's husband came up to me afterwards, and she's like, wow, I learned stuff about Al Jr. I never knew before. So, and they clapped, and it was like, it's almost like we had an actual studio audience. So it was kind of cool. So it's like, sometimes you just gotta, it's not going to be perfect, and there's some anxiety or some nervousness because it's out of your comfort zone, but you push through and you learn from it, and you continue to grow and push.
Well, I was on radio for a long time, 13 years. And whenever we did a remote, whether it was a new mall opening up or Lime Rock Park or what, always had, an engineer with me. And then I don't have to worry about the camera because it's a radio, right? So just have to, my voice has to be good, right? So it was so much easier to do remotes when it was radio than the one, so I don't know. I guess unless I can use the PRI studio or something when I go out there, I'll probably can the remote stuff. But you mentioned that party was amazing, and I want to get off the feel good stuff because I want to talk about some real stuff about IndyCar. But that party was amazing. There were some real. I mean, Johnny Parsons Jr. Johnny Parsons. I mean, he can talk a blue. I had him on a show. It's one of the most popular shows that we've aired yet. Was the show that Johnny Parsons was on.
I agree with you.
The guy can tell a story like nobody. I mean,
he's
full of them.
He's full of something, and the stories are part of that. But yeah, we had him on the show once as well, and we'd like to get him back because he's quite the character, that's for sure.
I'm gonna have to give Ralph a call, Ralph Hansen, and see if he'll come. Yeah, I'm sure he'll come on if I invite him. Hey, so let's talk a little bit about. All right, I think this is probably rhetorical. Your favorite form of racing? I mean, you do a lot of sports car stuff, but what's your favorite? What has the most special place in your heart for racing?
I got to tell you, I mean, even though I've made my living in the sports car world and teaching that kind of thing, my heart is still with open wheel cars, Indy cars in particular. I mean, like I said, when I started racing, I started in Formula Cars because the whole intent was to get to Indianapolis. And even though I didn't get there, I got my IndyCar license some years ago, and that's one of those great memories that nobody can take away from you. And to have that little bit of a taste of it, as well as my interest in it growing up, and then. I keep thinking, and my wife probably doesn't want to hear this, but it's like I feel like I still want to go back and race an open wheel car because that first win I was telling you about earlier that I got at Road America was in a Ralt RT5 Super B, and that was probably the favorite race car that I've ever owned, and I would love to get my hands on another one and go vintage racing.
Well, my days in Formula Ford got me hooked on open wheel, and
right.
There's nothing. I just think. I mean, I've driven late model sportsman cars. I've done, sports cars, but open wheel is just the thing for me.
Well, and you know how it is when you get wheel to wheel with somebody, or you're drafting somebody at whatever track, and all of a sudden you can hear the sound of your engine and the sound of their engine, and there's those harmonics that get going, and you're close enough that you can't even read the casting on the gearbox of the car in front of you, and you're like, yeah, this is living.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Let's go.
So let's talk about IndyCar, and I've had a couple of guests on, and I will say, I'm not going to say who, but I will say I think some people are a little reticent to not say anything critical about the sport. But I feel like, and I watched a podcast the other day, and it was a guy who did a lot of like men's ministry stuff, and ex-Navy SEAL, or if you're ever an ex-Navy SEAL, he said you need three people in your life. You need one guy who's going to call you out for your, be whatever, and be honest with you. You got one guy that you can talk to, and he'll take it to the grave, and he'll support. And you get one guy you can call at 3 o'clock in the morning and said, "I need you now," and he's on his way over. If you get one of those three, you're great. But I like the first guy because a lot of people will blow smoke at you, and a lot of people will tell you what you want to hear, but they won't be on it. And as a pastor, it's hard for me to have people like nobody in the church they all want to criticize me behind my back, but nobody will come to me face to face and say, Pastor, I think that, right? And that's just that's true in every church. So when I say things about IndyCar that people perceive as critical, I'm not saying it because I love IndyCar. I live and die for it. I mean, I tell my wife for years, honey, there's another woman in my life. It's the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I mean, I have loved IndyCar since I was a 9-year-old kid. But I got to say, I'm a little frustrated when you look at Iowa and there's 3,000 people there. I mean, it's almost Brickyard reverse, right? You go to Iowa and you can't get any IndyCar fans there. You go to Iowa and the place is packed for NASCAR. You bring it back here to Indianapolis, you get 75,000 people, which in a 250,000 fixed seat arena is like BB's rolling around a boxcar. But you can pack out the Indy 500. So I don't understand. Where do you think IndyCar is right now health-wise on the health meter, and what can they do to get stronger?
Well, I think, in my opinion, the honeymoon phase of Roger owning the Speedway and the series is well and truly over, right? You've had people step aside. Obviously, now you've got Doug Bowles kind of doing double duty running the show with the series as well as the speedway. But there's a real problem when you go to Iowa and you sell 6,000 tickets for the entire weekend.
Yeah.
Now, if you think back a year ago, now granted you had Hy-Vee throwing a ton of money at that, and I heard somebody, I think it was on another podcast, and you probably have heard this too, Will, where they said, they threw this great concert and a race happened to break out.
Right. Right.
And that's why most of those people were there, because they could have cared less about that particular race. Now, it's my understanding that Iowa will probably be off the schedule for next year. But now, then the other issues that we've got, Portland is Portland. It does pretty well, probably year in and year out. But then, seeing what happened in Iowa makes me nervous about Milwaukee. Milwaukee has been a mainstay for a long time. Of course, you had the dark period there where, that whole state fair ownership and everything, and before they brought it back. But, how much longer is that going to last? That place doesn't hold a ton of seats, but I would be surprised if they had a decent crowd, because it's not a doubleheader this year like it was last year. And then you finish out at Nashville, only because, the downtown road course is all torn up with the building of the new stadium. So it's like you finish the last two out of three races on ovals, and it's like, it makes you a little bit nervous about how that's going to go. But I think almost the bigger issue is that, we're effectively at August 1st right now. The end of the month, we're done, and we're dark for 6 months. We're off of everybody's radar. To me, that is probably the biggest issue. We can talk all we want about, the tech and the rules and, for everything that happened from Indy to the Penske team and onward, and having that separation, and that's going to happen. But I think they've got to really do a rethink on this schedule here. Part of the reason I know that they don't run from September on is because they're trying to, be respectful to the NFL. Well, okay. But you got Formula One running at COTA in October. They don't care.
They don't care.
They are running at Las Vegas in November. They don't care about that. So why should IndyCar care, right? Because it's survival of the fittest here. And you whatever goodwill you had, and Fox, Fox, the broadcast network, has done some really good things. They're figuring it out. It's not perfect, but all in all, I think it's a thumbs up from them. But and they've put a lot of investment into trying to help promote that. And I love the intros, and I love some of the features, the cutaway car, all of the ghost car and all that kind of stuff. But there's got to be something to continue to draw the fans' interest during that off season, or shorten the off season in some way, shape, or form. Because from September 1st to February, when they go to the preseason test at Thermal, they're all but forgotten about. And then it's kind of like if you're a skier or a golfer and you get pretty good, and then you have to pack up your clubs or your skis for the off season. It's like, however good you got, you got to work to get back to that, because you were laid off for however many weeks or months.
It's such a long off season, to your point. I feel like we lose fans and we have to win them back.
Well, right. And the other thing that we're seeing now is, we have this conversation all the time about ovals, and the oval racing has been fantastic. I'm not so sure that I'm sold on Iowa as a great racetrack, but the racing and the depth of talent in the series overall is crazy good.
Yes.
I did not have Kiffin Simpson on my bingo card for a podium in Toronto. I can tell you that. But it just goes to show how good the talent is. But, I think all of those people that pine away and opine and whine and, be and moan about we need more ovals, I hate to say it, but I feel like it's more the purist fans like you and I that loved him going to Michigan. They loved him going to Pocono, and they would love, all those kinds of things, but they're gearing towards trying to attract newer, younger fans. And you and I both know, with everything that's out there for them to pick from and choose from, and social media and stuff, you can't, it's hard to hold their attention, especially when you're gone for 6 months.
But you think about it, and we're talking with Kevin Krause, and we're going to go over the break a little bit here, boys, so we're going to have to hold up on the Speed Sport promo. You look at the markets, right? And St. Pete, always a good race, always a good crowd. Long Beach sells itself. It's Road America. Mid-Ohio generally draws a good crowd. Indy, forget it. It knocks out. Now, maybe the street course race at Dallas will do that. But I was like, if you build it, they will come. It doesn't work in IndyCar. I was in the middle of nowhere. There's no population. And if you don't do what Hy-Vee did, which is pump tens of millions of dollars into that event and promote it and turn it into an event, not just a car race, it should come off the schedule. But at the same time, it breaks my heart because I've always thought of IndyCar as an American open wheel series. And when you think of American open wheel, you think of ovals. But
Right.
yeah, they get no. I think ovals are the redheaded stepchild. They get no attention. They get no promotion. I mean, Penske Entertainment. I'm told. I've read. Penske Entertainment promoted Iowa.
Mm-hmm. That's
and we
right.
sold,
They did.
And we sold 3,000 tickets
Yeah,
for 2 days.
exactly.
So,
And I didn't see any stats, but how much better was Gateway? I don't think it was that
well,
much
Gateway
better.
was Gateway always has a decent crowd, and I think it had a fairly good crowd this year. Not as good as it
But
normally
look at
does.
what the
But
proximity is.
Barbarino does. Barbarino Motors does so much there. They do so much for
Right.
promotion. That's what I'm saying. I just feel like maybe Penske Entertainment should change its name because I don't know. And again, this isn't critical of Roger. I'm just saying, as an IndyCar fan, if you cut me, I'm going to bleed Indiana red. I just feel like they don't understand entertainment. They don't understand the fans. They don't understand what the fans want, and I don't know what the answer is. But as an IndyCar fan for my entire life, I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated with it. I don't know how else to.
No, I agree
put
with
it.
you. I get frustrated at that too. And I was thinking, how many before this Iowa kind of debacle in terms of the crowd size happened. I was like, how much longer can Iowa hang in there? And then it's like, okay, is this the slow demise of ovals from the schedule? I mean, like I said earlier, it's like, is Milwaukee next? Is Nashville after that because the road course there wasn't done? Then it's like, okay, well, what other options do you have? Do you go to Atlanta Motor Speedway to try to capture that market of the Southeast? Do you revisit Watkins Glen for that, which is a road course?
They're talking about Glenn. I heard conversation about Phoenix, which again, Phoenix was ruined by making it a NASCAR track for IndyCar.
Yeah, completely ruined.
I don't know. We'll have to finish this. Listen, thank you so much. The next time we have a party in Indianapolis, I'm calling on Kraus Meats to be the supplier.
Heck yeah.
To have you next to me on the grill flipping burgers. That's what I have to do.
You got it, man.
All right. Hey,
You got it.
Maybe I'll see you at the IMSA race at the Brickyard. So if you're around,
I will
anyway,
be.
Kevin, thank you so much, Kevin. I really appreciate you. Thank you.
Thanks for having me back on, Will. Best of luck to everything.
Keep up the good
Talk
work.
to you soon.
Seventh
You too.
Gear Over Rev is the show, is the podcast.
The
All right, we're gonna
greatest
take
spectacle in podcasting.
Yes, it is. We're going to take a break and got some a little bit of promo for our good friends at Speed Sport, and we'll be back with Tony D. Tony Donahue.
Place for non-stop racing action. Thursday, starting at 6 p.m. Eastern, we'll serve up fresh prime cuts. This week, we'll have modifieds from Albany Saratoga Speedway and late models from Cherokee Speedway, followed by the latest in IHRA highlights. All Day Friday is IMCA Racing. This week is the Midwest Madness Tour. 4 nights, 4 tracks, 1 champion. Go to speedsport1.com for details and viewing options.
Sport One, your one-stop shop for all racing news. And again, Speed Sport One, 100 events a week in season for racing. So if you have your racing and they exclusive coverage of Trans Am TA and TA2 series. All right, so here we are, Indianapolis Day. So Indianapolis, our next guest, long history in Indianapolis, in sports in general, broadcaster for many, many years on sports radio, and now has his own very successful podcast and is also co-hosts a very successful podcast, Tony Donahue. Tony, welcome back.
How's it going, Will?
Good. Haven't seen you in a while. Nice to see you. I know you're at the Brickyard. Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I think the Brickyard was actually pretty good. We had an exciting finish. Outside of the heat, though, I mean, it was one of those, you think back to 2010, 2011 in the brutal heat that we had. So I'm glad to be here with you. But, yeah, no, it was overall a pretty good weekend, though.
Did you end up spotting at the Xfinity race?
I did.
Tell us about that. That's exciting.
Yeah, it was interesting. I got a call early in the week last week. Hey, I got a guy looking for a couple extra spotters. Could you maybe hop on up there? Sure, no problem. So ended up getting up there with Dawson Cram and Mike Harmon Motorsports, and I think the goal was just to save the car and get it to Iowa this weekend. We did that, survived 3 or 4 crashes, got the lucky dog, and ended up finishing 31st on the lead lap. So they were happy with that, so I'll take it.
Okay. All right. That's good. We'll take it. I know we talked a little bit about Doug Bowles says ticket sales are down a little bit, maybe 5,000 or 6,000 shy of the prior year. How did it look in the stands?
Yeah,
it looked weak on TV. I watched it, and it looked thin, sadly.
Yeah, my guesstimation walking out of there was 40 to 45,000. I think IMS is always going to stretch that number just a little
60, 65. Yeah, that's what I
think. Who knows who bought tickets and then didn't show up due to the heat. Who knows? They may say, well, we gave away 2,500 tickets to our sponsors and PPG and Snap-on and Pennzoil and Advanced Auto Parts. And maybe those folks just decided not to show up because they had gotten those tickets for free. Yeah. And they decided to not bear the heat and just watch on TV. So, I think 40 to 45,000 is a pretty true estimate. That's kind of what I thought walking out of there. But again, with the heat, you just never know. But we ended up overall having a pretty good race, especially late when that yellow came out.
Yeah. And big win for Bubba Wallace. I got to tell you, and I think you probably feel this way, I was really happy for Catherine Legg. Very, very important. Only second time a woman has finished 20th or better in a cup race. Did you have any chance to interview or get near Catherine during the weekend?
We were texting back and forth on Sunday after the race. She had to rush back to get to some things in Atlanta, but an overall good weekend. I mean, even the team over the radio was saying, if we could just get her to a few tests and kind of get a baseline on some things. And I mean, it's a whole different beast. The 18th place or 17th place finish was better than she's ran at the Indianapolis 500 in the past. Catherine's got a lot of talent. A lot of people were working in the offseason to get her to the Indianapolis 500 and obviously keep that ELF sponsorship inside of IndyCar, which was a sponsor that I thought did a great job last year of activating inside of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, getting the female audience, getting the younger female audience involved, invested into the sport. And then, we only saw 34 cars at the Indianapolis 500 this year. And when Jacob Abel slid into the 51 full-time and some other part-time one-off entries became full, there just simply wasn't enough seats. Yeah. So Catherine was looking elsewhere. And then obviously the ARCA ride at Daytona came up, which turned into an Xfinity ride, which ultimately turned into this Brickyard 400 ride with BJ McLeod and Drop Light sponsorship here out of Indiana. So, it was a really good run for her. Those it's always nice, I think, when you can come back to a racetrack that you're familiar with. Even if you haven't ran a stock car there before, you're familiar with where things are, what's going on. Yeah. You don't feel like you're behind constantly right after you show up. So I thought it was a really good run for Catherine over the weekend.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Obviously a stock car and an Indy car, worlds apart. But her familiarity with the track, she's run a lot of laps there. So I wonder if that was a comforting thing for her, or just hitting apexes similarly. I don't know. What do you think?
I think like she had a little bit of difficulty getting off the corners, which is a little bit different in a stock car. Obviously, a heavier stock car, but you kind of did what she did what I would believe would have been asked of her: complete all the laps, continue to learn, stay out of trouble, and see what happens at the end. And then obviously with some of the wrecks and some of the rain delays and some cars running out of fuel there late, there was a lot of cars that dropped off and didn't get the finish maybe that they were looking for because they ran out of fuel. But overall, I mean, I thought it was an impressive day for Catherine, and it's always good to see.
Yeah, no, very happy for her. Alex Palou, I mean, I don't know what can you say about Palou that hasn't been said, right? I mean, the championship isn't mathematically closed out at this point yet, but it's. I think Palou only has to finish 16th or better in the remaining races, and he's got it. I mean, I think it's impossible for Pato to overcome that. Almost impossible. I mean,
Yeah, and you think about Ganassi sweeping all the road courses this season so far, with Palou winning every one of the natural road courses except for Mid-Ohio, in which his teammate Scott Dixon got it done. I mean, obviously he's going to be the favorite in Portland, a track that he's been so good at. And then you think about Milwaukee and Nashville to end the season. We came into the season without Alex Palou having an oval win. He wins the 500, wins race 2 at Iowa. So can he do it? Yes. Is it a tall task to win the final 3 and ultimately the final 4 in a row? Yes, but can Alex Palou do it 100%? I mean, you can't count him out of anything.
He's
going to roll off the truck fast. It's another one of those championship seasons that we're going to look back on and say, I mean, that's the gold standard right there. We talk about AJ and Al Sr. with 10 wins in a season. Yeah. We're going to look back at this year, regardless of what happens the remainder of the year, and that's a gold standard. That's a gold standard season for Alex Palou in the 10 car.
Yeah, I mean, Hall of Fame maybe doesn't mean as much in IndyCar racing as it does in the NFL or the NBA or MLB, but if he were to do that, I mean, you got to say, what's this going to be? It would be his 4th championship, and he hasn't been around that long, and he's won the Indy 500. I mean, you got to say he's a contender for Hall of Fame status at some point. I mean, the kid is just amazing.
Well, it's, you know, when he rolled in, you think about the stats that he's put up, and if you take away the stats that he put up in his rookie year with Dale Coyne Racing during the pandemic in 2020, where obviously you were learning these racetracks, you were learning the Indianapolis 500. If you take that away, I mean, what he's been able to do before getting to 100 starts is nothing short of remarkable. It's one of the best short-term runs that we've seen. It doesn't seem like he's going to go anywhere anytime soon. There were some small rumors about Formula One. He's building a house here in Indianapolis. His family is being raised here in Indianapolis. I don't see any reason why he would go to Formula One. I don't see any reason why Chip Ganassi is going to let him go anytime soon. So,
right.
Do I think that the field will come back to him? Yeah, I do. I think the field will come back to him. You know, we think about some bad years that Penske has had, and they've always bounced back. And we'll see what the driver lineup looks like for 2026. But this has been nothing short of phenomenal. And has it been a ratings killer? Yeah. Has the casual fan maybe not wanted to tune in because they already know the outcome of a race? Yeah, absolutely. But you know what? From somebody who covers it, who has been to many of these races this year and has spent time with Alex Palou, I think you just got to sit back and understand the historical nature and the historical value of what's going on right now with Alex Palou. Take it all in, enjoy it, and you know, we'll see if teams like Penske and Andretti and even McLaren to a certain point, although Pato's got 2 wins this year, if they can bounce back and fill that gap, because Palou is in another world. I mean, you look at Kyle Kirkwood, Kyle Kirkwood, Christian Lundgaard, Pato O'Ward. They're having championship caliber seasons. These would be championship caliber contending seasons, what they've done this year. Yet they're hundreds of points, or they're 100+ points out because Alex Palou's been so dominant.
Yeah. And I'm happy to see Scott Dixon having a good year. I mean, he won a race. He extended that streak. He's top 5 in the points. I mean, I think he's doing. Again, I love the veteran drivers, but clearly the young brigade is taking over. I mean, there's no stopping it now. And I think we haven't seen the best of Christian Rasmussen yet. I think Christian still has a lot more to show as the season goes on. So
well, I think you look at some of the younger drivers like a Christian Rasmussen, where you have to perform so quickly, so early in your career. He has a podium this year. He's ran pretty well. Is that enough to retain him next year if there are other possible suitors, if there are other possible veteran-type free agents next year? So I'm a big Christian Rasmussen fan, have been. I've known him since the USF 2000 days. He's a great kid with a lot of talent that's going to put it out there. But unfortunately, the one thing that Christian Rasmussen doesn't have going for him is he's a bit of a wild card. He's been able to bring it home in Indy, but he wrecked twice in practice. He's been able to have good runs, but as many good runs as he's had a bad finish or a DNF or a crash. So it just depends on what veteran drivers are out there and who could be available possibly in that 21 car. It's unfortunately, as you know, it's a dog-eat-dog business. And if somebody else is out there that maybe has brand recognition, name recognition, has been there, done that, maybe has an Indy 500 one under his belt, that's going to be looked at. So, we go back to Linus Lundqvist last year with Ganassi. Yeah. He had the money. He had the money from winning the Indy Next Championship a few years prior. Shows up, runs pretty well. He has 2 podiums, I believe, last season, and a pole position, and that wasn't enough to retain him. So, we could talk about good seasons all you want with some of these young drivers, but they have to be given time to develop. They have to be given time with the same team to develop, and sometimes that just simply doesn't happen.
Yeah. I wonder, do you think Will Powers has secured his spot. He's the best in terms of points. I think he leads all three drivers. Scotty's had a rough time with crashes. Joseph's the worst season maybe you could ever possibly have. When he ended up when it was Jacob Abel landed on top of him, the look on his face, if looks could have killed. I mean, he was just so disgusted. Do you think Will secured his spot at least for a 1 year after this?
I'll tell you what I said on Unverified last night is that if I'm Penske, and if I'm the people in charge at Penske, I look at Will Power and the Indianapolis 500, and I don't know if he can win that again. It's so hard to win it once, which he's done, but he has not had a great go in the 2020s at the Indianapolis 500. Yeah, he had the front row start last year, but then faded, ultimately crashed.
Yeah.
If I'm Roger Penske and I'm Bud Danker and I'm making decisions at Team Penske, I'm bringing Will Power back for at least one more year. And there's multiple reasons why. And you could look at it and say, well, now's the right time to bring in maybe a David Malukas because you have new, you have some new faces inside of that organization. You've had the likes of Kyle Moyer and Cindric move on because of the scandals that we saw not only at St. Pete last year, but again this year at the Indianapolis 500. I'm going to bring back the guy who's finished the best in the championship last year and more than likely this year. Won 3 races in a very competitive IndyCar series last year. Has been very consistent this year. Can Will Power still win road and street course races? Absolutely. Can Will Power still score poles on road and street course races? Absolutely. He won on the Nova last year at Iowa. Mm-hmm. I think you bring back Will. I would bring back personally Will Power for one more year. I'm not sure Penske does that, but you have to ask yourself, do you want to bring Will Power back or do you want to see Will Power in another seat? Because as soon as it's found out that he is no longer going to be with Team Penske, I know 2 of them. I know at least 2 teams that have already been in contact with his agent for his services. So, you got to ask yourself, do you bring him back because he's good enough? And do you bring him back because you don't want to see him in another seat? Or do you roll the dice that Will Power could be in another team next year and possibly be beating you? I think David Malukas is a great talent. I think David Malukas has the ability to move up. But if you remember, Joseph Newgarden was winning races at Ed Carpenter / Sarah Fisher Hartman Racing before he went to Penske.
Right.
David Malukas has been close. He's knocked on the door a few times, but he's also taken himself out of contention multiple times. Mm-hmm. He had a second this year at the Indianapolis 500, which third on track, second after penalties. I think he's a great talent. I don't know if he can win a race in a Foyt car. I do think he can win a race in a Penske car. If it was me running the show, Will, I'm bringing Will Power back for at least one more year.
I agree, and I got to tell you, I'm praying for Santino. One of these 2 oval races, I'm hoping Santino pulls it. Hey, can you hold on for 30 seconds? We have to acknowledge one of our sponsors. I'm so
absolutely
grateful for that. Okay. Hey, this segment is brought to you by America's Christian Credit Union. If you're looking for a smart, faith-aligned way to grow your savings, listen, they've got a great deal right now. New members, 4.75% on a 12-month certificate. It's a limited offer. Again, new members, you can deposit up to $1 million. Start with as little as $1,000. It's called a term share certificate. Don't wait. Lock in before the rate drops. Go to americaschristiancu.com/pits. That's americaschristiancu.com/pits today. And make some money. Make some money. All right, we're joined by Tony. Thank you, Tony. Thank you. I had to pay some bills. Thank you for hanging on. I had a great discussion with Kevin Kraus earlier. Kevin's from the Seventh Gear Overdrive Overrev podcast, and I say this. I've said some critical things about IndyCar in terms of the series management, and when I do it from a position of love because I've loved IndyCar since I was a little kid. And there's no place. I mean, Indy's my second home. I won't miss a 500. I love it. But I got to tell you, and I agree, Kevin made the statement that the honeymoon is over with the Penske ownership of the series. And when you look at Iowa and, you sell 3,000 tickets at Iowa, and it was Penske Entertainment. I've read and been told it was Penske Entertainment responsible for the promotion of that. What has to happen to get this ship turned around? I mean, I don't know. Iowa's probably not coming back. Milwaukee, maybe not. I don't know. They're talking about Mexico City, talking about potentially Denver, Dallas is coming up there. What do we have to do? If you were in the inner circle, and you know as much as anybody about IndyCar, what's your opinion on what has to happen to get this thing? I mean, I feel like we're floundering. I don't really feel like we're being the series that we're, born to be.
There's a lot of things I think go into it. I think you and I have had a discussion multiple times that you need more sponsors that the average consumer, you, me, your producer, my buddy my neighbor next door can go out and support, right? I was at the NASCAR race over the weekend, and you look at all of the brands on these cars that you can go to the grocery store or you can go support. There's just a lot of, I think, brand recognition from the 90s and the 80s in IndyCar came with the Kmart car, the Budweiser car, the Miller Lite car, the Marlboro car. There was, the Target car, obviously with Chip Ganassi, was synonymous for years. We lack that, I think, in IndyCar. We could talk about promotion, and, I think sometimes you got to get back to the basics. That it's when you roll into a town, you roll into a city, you're going to the nearest casinos, you're going to the nearest YMCA's, Boys and Girls Clubs, taking a show car to a school. If it's in school, you're handing out free tickets to Saturday. Hope to get those fans to come out on Sunday. Local TV, which I will be the first to tell you, I don't think is the best route. But when you go to these places like in Iowa or like in Milwaukee, let's promote on local sports radio and give out some tickets. I mean, giving out some freebies isn't going to make or break your wallet or your pocketbook. As far as ovals and attendance, I mentioned this in my podcast last week. I think what IndyCar is lacking is the danger element. We've grown so used to these drivers climbing out of the race car, and we have this chassis that has been running in IndyCar since 2012. We have the aero screen. These are supposed to be the most safest race cars that IndyCar has ever seen. Why are we only going 200 plus miles an hour 12 days out of the year in the month of May?
Right.
You go back, maybe go back to a Michigan, maybe go back to a Homestead, Kentucky. Chicagoland seems to be on the verge of landing a NASCAR date. Yeah. And there's an element of these drivers are heroes to people. These drivers are they're like astronauts, right? They're like fighter pilots. They are doing something that the average human cannot do. And I'm not saying I want to see drivers injured. I'm certainly not saying I don't want to see drivers killed. But an element of speed and danger and sexiness, I think, has gone away. Like I said, we're only going 200 plus miles an hour 12 days out of the year, and that's 7 practice days, qualifying days, and then the Indianapolis 500. So, unfortunately, it is a niche sport, and 95% of the audience is right here in Indianapolis. All of your ovals are within 5 to 6 hours of a driving distance. And if you're a family of 4, or you and your buddies want to go to a race, you got to pick between Milwaukee, Gateway, Iowa, Nashville. And each race gives you a little bit something different. Obviously, there used to be concerts at Iowa, or you could go to Iowa and see 2 races. Milwaukee is within, obviously 15 minutes of a downtown area where you could go do other things. There's more entertainment. Nashville's cool, although you're 40 minutes south of downtown Nashville. At least it's the championship decider. Gateway under the lights on a Sunday night, even though it may be a little bit difficult to get back. I mean, we got back at like 2-3 in the morning. Each oval does kind of bring the fans something, but I mean, well, we got to our Airbnb about 15 minutes outside of the Iowa Speedway, outside of Newton. And the guy said, "Hey, what are you guys here for?" And I said, "Oh, we're here for the IndyCar weekend, doubleheader races Saturday and Sunday." He goes, "Oh, I didn't even realize they were still doing that. I've been booked for the NASCAR weekend for the last 3 months." So there's just a lot, and unfortunately, I do want to see some accountability. I think Doug Bowles in the offseason is going to have to look around the room and make some hard decisions of who's accountable for these things. Who's accountable for bad marketing and the constant IndyCar partnering with unfamiliar brands. Sports car brand is Parkside. They do an okay job. Unfortunately, the only other client they have is National Women's Soccer League. Your Grid Rival app, which is your fantasy app. Nobody's ever heard of that. You can't even deposit money into it in the state of Indiana. It's not a DraftKings. It's not a FanDuel. I could go on and on these things. It's like, okay, you got to take yourself seriously, and you have to spend money to make money. And it just seems like they haven't been willing to spend a lot of money with that. Mexico City, that's on hold. That's on hold right now. It was. I was told 2 weeks ago it was full go. They've got some holdups.
I heard the same thing.
They've got some holdups. They've got some major holdups. Let's just say that. Do I think it's going to happen? Yeah, I hope they can work around the 2 or 3 major holdups that have came up. As far as adding another oval, you're kind of limited, right? Are you going to be able to go run a track, and then are you going to promote that? Because obviously they didn't do that in Iowa. Can you add a Phoenix? Can you add a Richmond? Can you add maybe something like Homestead just to get by? We'll see. There's obviously some holdups. Last year's schedule came out mid-June. We're already heading towards August 1st on Friday, and we don't have a schedule. So August 1st, this next month, we're going to learn a lot about free agency and what next year's schedule looks like.
I was a fan of the. I almost have to be embarrassed to say this as a pastor, but I was a fan of the show Suits with the lawyers and stuff on there. There's my guy George saying yes, and the star of that was Harvey Specter. He was the best lawyer in town. And he was they wanted him to get associate. He was overloaded. So his secretary, Donna, says, well, what am I looking for? What do you want? He goes, I want somebody like me. Yeah. And I say to Doug Bowles, Doug, you got to find somebody like you. Somebody who loves racing, loves fans, is out there all the time. He's you can tell, even at Indy, he's got so much more on his plate now. Even the attitude isn't the same anymore with the pressure. You got to find Doug, and you got to cut him loose and let him be the marketer for this thing. Somebody that loves racing, loves IndyCar. Forget racing. Somebody that loves IndyCar as much as you love it. Someone who understands fans the way you understand fans, and somebody who wants to be out there and pushing this thing. Because I think they lost. I think Doug taking over the series was a loss a little bit, and I wonder if they can replicate him and clone him so that there's Doug and Doug 2 out there making this thing happen. I don't know.
Yeah, there's some people in mind. Obviously, Michael Kaltenmark, who is taking over a bigger role at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, is somebody who loves IndyCar, was involved in the 2000s, and then ventured over to Butler University. I think he's somebody that you're never going to replace the Doug Bowles, right? You're never going to duplicate him, but I think Michael could do a very good job of that. But I think of what I asked for as somebody who independently covers IndyCar that doesn't make a dime off of it unless I get a good hit on Facebook or something, right? I will say this, you need to look at the reporters that you have and the people that are covering your sport, and you need to be proactive with them. Hey, can we get you a driver interview? Yeah. Hey, let's do this. Hey, we got something cool. We're going to put you in a pace car and you can do a lap. They give all that to Fox, which is fine. I have no problem with that. Fox has paid a lot of money for IndyCar.
Sure.
But you're bringing in these influencers that don't do anything to move your sport forward. Right. You look at them and you say, oh, we don't have that audience. But then you're partnering with somebody who's 10 or 15,000 fans that, it's like, okay, then they're there for a weekend. They get the behind the scenes access. They don't even mention the race really. Yeah. They just say, oh, look at me. Yeah, and then you never see them again. So it's bare minimum stuff. I mean, here in Speedway, you drive up and down Main Street. Can we get a banner? Can we get on the Unser Memorial Roundabout that's being built? Can we get a moving billboard that says, "Hey, qualifying is Saturday, May 18th, and Sunday, May 19th." Just to get people to know. And it's a fine balance of people can find stuff on their phone, but you really have to, when you're marketing, you have to almost beat the consumer over the head about what's going on, because you can't expect people to do it. We live in such a lazy society on things. Yes. But man, it's you look at the Milwaukee looks like we're going to have a good crowd. I think people still love the mile. You're right there. You might get a really good walk-up crowd as well. Nashville's not looking very good. You're 40 miles south. I do love the Oval, but you're 40 miles south of downtown, and that probably takes away from the walk-up crowd. They had a pretty okay crowd there last year, I would say, as the first season finale. If I was IndyCar, you got to be careful, right? Because there's really not much going on. That's the first week of college football. Notre Dame plays Miami on ABC that Sunday night. Do you move it to the evening? Do you try to get that evening crowd again on Sunday like you did at Gateway, which is the last time you got over 1 million? If you move it under the lights, Nashville has lights. Maybe you start it at 6:30 local time. I believe Nashville's on Central Time, if I'm not mistaken. Have it under the lights. There's a little bit more excitement. You get better racing. There's an Amazon plant like on the same grounds as Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
I'd take a stack of tickets over there. Hey, whoever wants to come out, we'd love to have you. Boom, boom, boom. At least get some concession pricing. At least get people involved to go in there that are already in that area. But there's just a lot. I wish I knew the magic formula to get those fans that love the Indianapolis 500 but don't follow IndyCar to continue to follow. There's a lot that goes into it. We don't have enough time for that. But man,
let's have a focus group. Let's have a focus group of people like you and me and others who love the sport and been following our entire lives, invest time and energy in it for nothing. Let's get us around a round table and throw ideas out. But you said that I think I've heard you say it in your last podcast, and I know James Hinchcliffe said it. Ovals, the only way to save ovals is nighttime racing. Put them out there. It worked. It worked for St. Louis. Prime time. Get it out there and get them under the lights. They love racing under the lights. The racing is better. It's cooler. There's so many reasons to do it, but they've got to get serious. I think Fox is doing a great job, but they've got to get more strategic on how they're going to get not only more people at the races, but more people watching races. And I think nighttime ovals will save the ovals.
I think every oval besides the 500 should be at night. Go to United Rentals and say, hey, we need 15 temporary stanchions for the Milwaukee Mile.
Well, they do it at Indy for the IMSA races. They put temporary lighting everywhere, so it's possible.
You look at what Purdue does for their Friday night football games. They bring in temporary lights. You go to United Rentals and you say, hey, we know you're involved in Ray Hall. We'd love for you. Would you give us a trade? Give us the lights, and we'll make Saturday United Rentals qualifying day. It'll be the United Reynolds Indy Next 100 at Milwaukee.
Great, creative. I love it. We got to write this down. Write that down. Make a note of that. It's a great idea. Hey, we are over. We're out of time. Hey, thank you so much. Always a pleasure to see you. Thank you for what you're doing on the Tony D podcast and Unverified Cast. And hopefully we'll see you soon. Thank you. Tony
Thanks,
Donahue,
we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.
All right. Thanks a bunch. Hey, I know we went over. We're done. We're late. Thanks so much, Alex. Thank you. Thank you, Kevin Krause. Thank you, America's Christian Credit Union. Excuse me. We're going to have, I think next week we're going to do a new sponsor announcement. I'm so excited about that. And we're also going to be changing our day. I will talk about this in the newsletter. If you haven't signed up for our newsletter, go to our website, thepitsareopen.com. Click on the top. Sign up for our newsletter. We're changing our schedule. We're changing our day. There's a reason for it. I can't tell you why now, but it's going to be an exciting, very exciting, big deal why we're doing this. Not just because of our schedule, but because there's a reason behind it. And we're also going to be starting a new program in a couple of weeks that I will be co-hosting. And we'll talk to you about that next week as well. So a lot of stuff happening, all good stuff, very exciting. Thanks, Alex. We got gorgeous George in the studio today. Thank you, George. And anyway, have a great rest of your week. God bless you. Love you guys. And we'll see. Are we going to see you next? Is it Tuesday? We're starting Tuesday? All right. So next week we're going to be on Tuesday, not Wednesday, Tuesday, 4 o'clock. Same format for now, but that will be changing, and we'll give you news as we can on that. So Tuesday is our new day starting next week, 4 o'clock, YouTube, Pits Are Open Podcast, Facebook, Marati Autosport, Spotify, Pits Are Open. You can check out all that there. And, hey, again, we love you guys. We'll see you next week. Bye.